I know this is very common for a lot of developers out there. You have an idea to make a game, and it may take you years before you can even start actually properly working on it. I started working on my game back in 2017, and it's still in very early days. So why has this taken me almost 9 years, and it's still not even close to be finished? If you don't know me, I am Gael. I am a solo indie game developer, and I am working on my survival horror game called Silent Corruption. So basically, I'm making a survival horror game, like I said before, and this game idea started, like, I had this game idea back in 2017, but at the time, I didn't know anything about how to make games, and this is actually the idea that made me get into game development. I started researching how to make games. I had some experience before using RPG Maker many years ago, but yeah, I never really made anything there. It was more like a hobby. But this time I wanted to do a 3D game, so that led me to discover Unity, and after that, a few months later, also Blender, and start learning 3D. Because at first I started to learn, I wanted to learn how to program, but I found it super difficult. And so I thought, well, maybe let's research how to do 3D, and maybe I can start with, doing the art, because that's something that I'm going to need anyway, eventually, for my game. So this was at the end of 2017. So the next year in 2018 is when I started to learn more about game development and how to do 3D art. And of course, the game idea that I have for Silent Corruption, which back then it wasn't even called that. I think it was called Parasites or something like that. So that game idea was really big for my skills at the moment, because I wanted to do something like similar to Silent Hill. Yeah, so of course I was not able to do that at all. So I spent the 2018 or so trying to learn, but I was too distracted during that year, because that was the also the year that I moved to the UK. Funny enough, because I got employed by Ryanair to be a cabin crew. Yeah, that was a really interesting experience that went horribly wrong, because I got really sick. Yeah, like all that flying and all that pressure of flying was really bad for me, and I got really sick. But now I was in the UK. Yeah, it was, I guess, the opportunity that led me to move here, which I'm actually super happy, because I'm really happy here in the UK. Basically, during that year, I was really distracted because I wasn't stable. I had to move houses a lot of times. I was just renting rooms because obviously it was cheaper. So yeah, couldn't make much progress. And also, for a few months, I didn't even have my computer. It was back in Spain, so yeah, I had to wait a while until I could actually have a computer. So yeah, it was a weird year. 2019 was more or less the same, quite similar. I also had a few health problems. I was in the hospital for a while, so yeah. I started to learn Game Dead, and then the next like 2 years, I was super distracted with life and health issues and stuff like that. So the first 2, 3 years of trying to make a game, it was really hard to make anything. And then in 2020, the pandemic came, and yeah, of course, that was chaos for everybody. But that was the time that I met my partner. When all the lockdown finally ended, we moved in together. Because of that, I finally started to have some stability, and I could focus more on learning how to properly make games, and actually gave coding another chance, because I realized that yeah, I can make all the art in the world, but if I don't know how to code, I'm never going to be able to make the game I want to make. During that year, I started to learn coding a lot more. And I made a few games and prototypes while I was following some courses, especially from Game.tv. They are really good. That's my favorite teacher. For example, I did this game where you control a rocket, and I also did this really short horror game where you're basically wake up on a maze and you have to find your way out. And now I'm just dying because behind this screen, all the other monsters are going after me and they're constantly killing me. It's really fun. And after that, I felt a bit more confident in my skills, and I tried to work on an adventure game that was called Momo's Journey, and it was going to be something like a Zelda inspired Ocarina of Time. And for this, I got a few people to help me, but we didn't get too far because we were all working for free. And yeah, well, it was a lot of work, and you know how these things goes. They usually never go really well when it's a team that is working for free. But I really like this idea, so I would like to come back to it. And at the end of 2020, I started to work on a free game with a few other people. And on February 2021, we finally released. It's just a very short game that has a lot of bugs. It's just a silly adventure called The Witch and the Curse, and it's available on my itch.io if you want to try it. It's really bad because it's my first game, but that helped me learn how to make games, you know, and how to code and all that. And that helped me also get a job in a small studio called Squixo that you maybe know. It's the studio that released Bo Path of the Teal Lettuce. So for the next year and a half, almost 2 years, I was working with them, and I learned a ton about, you know, my programming skills improved a lot more, and my understanding of how to make games and how to make games for production, not just make prototypes and stuff like that. And yeah, that was an amazing experience. So I finished working with Squidsock in 2023 in about October or something like that. And then and about that time is when the game industry started to collapse and there were all these massive layoffs everywhere. So it was really difficult for me to find another job because, well, I was still a junior. I didn't have that much experience working in the game industry yet, so it was really difficult to find a job. And for like 6 months or something like that, I didn't have a job. And because obviously I needed to pay bills, my partner was the only one that was working. It was really stressful, so I had to get a job in just a random day job. I realized maybe it was the time to focus on making my own game instead, which is what I wanted to do anyway. So I think that was, a good time to go back and go back to my very first idea of the very first game I wanted to make, which is the game I'm making right now. And finally, I started working properly on Silent Corruption. For the first half of 2024, I was focusing a lot on crafting the story and making the main character Jane, which I already made a video about this, that I took like 5 versions to finally land on a version of Jane that is what I had in my head and something that I'm happy with. If you want to watch that video, it should be somewhere around the screen. And I started focusing more on the story because my game is very story driven, and the story was going to influence the game design a lot, and the mechanics and the vibe of the game and the atmosphere. So I wanted to have that in a good place before I would jump into actually making a prototype. And I spent a few months doing that, and I finally jumped into Unity and started prototyping a few things. But I don't even have that first project anymore. I think it got lost somehow in time. Yeah, and I started to work a bit of this. I also was learning how to rig an anime so I can put my character in the engine, and just doing very basic mechanics, like just starting with character movement on the camera just to get a feel of how movement will work and all that. And after I was working on this for a while, that's when Unity did this runtime fee fiasco. That was a stressful time because every other developer out there using Unity, it made me kind of panic. And I then thought about changing engines to Unreal Engine. And I started to make a prototype in Unreal Engine. And I worked on that for a few months. And I found it really difficult to understand Unreal Engine. Like, coming from Unity, Unity is a lot more straightforward and I think more user friendly. And also, Unreal Engine was like kind of really heavy on my potato PC that I have. My PC is kind of old, so that wasn't going very well. Like doing moving my project to Unreal Engine wasn't going really well. Even though I kind of did like a few things and they look kind of cool. I wasn't really happy with the workflow that I needed to have on Unreal Engine, and also I didn't enjoy at all programming in Unreal Engine because programming in C++ is really annoying, and also I didn't enjoy programming with blueprints. So I finally decided to go back to Unity because Unity kind of went back on the runtime fee thing. So I was like, you know what? I can't be bothered learning a whole new engine. I already have experience with Unity. I'm comfortable programming here and setting stuff here. So I'm just going to go back to Unity and whatever. If Unity collapses, well, that will be a problem for the future. I went back to Unity and started working again on a prototype, this time with fixed camera because I actually like fixed cameras in horror game a lot. Obviously, this is the classic survival horror formula. I made a few things like the movements with fixed cameras, a basic interaction system, and just to feel this idea. And even though it wasn't too bad, I it kind of the fixed camera didn't feel right for my game, because every time I was imagining my finished game, I will imagine it with a 3D camera, sort of adventure camera or whatever you want to call it. So I kind of scratched that and started working on another prototype with more of like an adventure camera, kind of like over the shoulder, but not exactly. I think that worked a lot better because I actually want to make my game very immersive, and I think that this type of camera works a lot better with what I want to do. So yeah, while I was doing that during the end of 2024, I also started this YouTube channel and I started to make videos alongside working on my game. I made videos every week for almost like a year, and I realized that making videos is a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, and it was taking a lot of time away from making my game. And I kind of like stopped making videos for a while. I was really struggling with finding a balance between making videos and working on my game, because I'm don't have that much time. I have a day job that I also have to go. So that was during 2025. I was trying to have a YouTube channel and make my game at the same time, and it didn't go really well. So now in 2026, I decided to, even though I'm going to continue making videos, this is going to be like a side thing, and I'm going to focus only or mainly on working on my game. Monday to Friday is going to be working on my game, focus on that before I go to my work and in the evening, so I can do like around 4 or 5 hours a day to work on my game, which I think is really good. And on Saturdays, take easy, make just a quick video explaining something about my game and doing it more like some sort of like journal to document my game and all that. So yeah, this is why games take so long to make, because a lot of us are distracted. Life gets in the way, we have a lot of things, we don't focus on just one thing. At least that was my problem for a long time. I was very distracted with trying to make a lot of things at the same time, and over time I come to realize that I just need to focus on one thing. And once I finish that thing, I can focus on the next. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to focus on making my game, and that's it. I'm not going to do any other side project apart, well, I guess making videos, but like making these videos is just, kind of like a hobby, I guess. So yeah, I hope my story helps you realize that it can take a long time before you can actually start doing what you want, and that is okay. It's doing a creative project and something so difficult as a video game is really difficult. To just the fact that you need to learn so many things and to be able to properly focus. If you had a lot of things going on in your life, try to remove whatever is fluff and try to focus on just making your game and just finishing it, because otherwise you're just going to be stuck in a weird limbo and you're never going to finish anything. And yeah, I know that if you're also neurodivergent like me, this is very difficult to do, but it's just the only way to move forward. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.